I'd like to welcome y'all. I want to encourage you to participate in the discussions this morning. We have a work group of clerk staff that kind of help develop all the best practices. We couldn't do it without the staff from the clerk's offices, so I really want to thank all of you. Also our FACC staff, and today with the staff is Cindy Andrews, Randy Long's here, Beth Almond's here. We couldn't do it without them either, so I do thank all them. We put a lot of work into all our best practices. And they're here to provide guidance and knowledge. They're not mandates. They're to try to get us to all be uniform in what we're doing, because we have been criticized across the state for not being uniform. I encourage you to make sure you go on the clerk's internet, make sure other staff in your offices have access to the internet so they can go on there and look for the best practices. We have to always keep them updated and add new ones, and the laws change, and so the best practices change. If anyone ever sees something we need to know, email me or email the staff so that we can look at what we need to make changes on. The best practice this morning on the workflow on the receipt and disbursements of collections came about because the agencies were questioning the accuracy of our process. And each agency wants to make sure they get their money timely and accurately, and make sure we're using the right priority order of getting that money to them. We should all be following the FACC distribution schedule to ensure our receipt of monies are broken down into the correct categories and order. And Beth Almond with FACC is here today, and she's going to talk about that best practice along with Randy Long. And Randy's going to also discuss a separate issue about collection effort involving the lottery division. Don Murphy from Volusia County is here, and he's going to go over their collection process and what works for Volusia County. Gypsy Bailey from Leon County is here as an active member of the work group, and she'll briefly discuss the best practice on collections and focus on civil traffic and how new legislation under House Bill 7095 can help us on collections with civil traffic. So I'm going to now turn the program over to Beth Almond.
I'm not sure I'm doing this thing yet. Okay. Well, I guess I don't know. I kind of feel like the card is. All right, can you hear me now? Am I wired? Am I good? I kind of feel like the cart is before the horse, because they're going to talk about how to get the money. How to get the money to you, how to get it to you better, how to get more of it. And my section is talking about the distribution and what to do in your office when you get it. And everybody probably knows the money comes in and it goes other places. Beginning a few years ago, and you can see if this part is up, it was like late 2010. Randy and I were getting calls, we were getting tired of hearing from the agencies, where's my money? Where are my pennies that were collected on Crime Stoppers? Or, where's my Fish and Wildlife money? Where's this, where's that? And we kind of said, what are you talking about? I mean, clerks have a process. They have a process. It's pretty much the same in every office, we thought. What are you talking about? So we finally said, we need to get people together. And you can see from the list, we had a good representation of small, medium, and large counties. And we started working in the fall of 2010. And we were trying to document, what do you do with the money when it comes in? And that's what we put together in this process workflow that is becoming the best practice of the flow of money is once it comes to your office. So that's why I said they're going to talk about how to get it there. We want to talk about first about what you do when it comes in. So, and honestly, we did this to try to help answer the agencies and help them understand. Well, we want reports from the clerks. They said, we want to know. And we said, you want daily reports from every clerk in every county? I mean, we know years and years ago, Fish and Wildlife did get RIPAR reports from every county every day. And they went through them. They were the only agency that could tell us how much money from the non-game wildlife trust fund was there and why. And they pretty much relied on those green bar reports because they went through them every day. They used several staff people, and they just went through stacks and they double-checked all their money to make sure they were getting it. But that's back in the day when you wrote checks. once a month or once a week, however you did it, and wrote a check to every one of the agencies, whether they had a remittance sheet or not. Department of Education for the tobacco money never had a remittance sheet. You just made out money, Department of Ed, and sent it off. There wasn't any way to double check for them or for you to kind of let them know, yeah, this is right. They just got checks. So we put the work group together and we said, let's look at how this happens. And so pretty much we all agreed that the payments come in. They either come in at a counter, they come in through your mail room, or maybe they're coming in through a court payment where they've been ordered in court and they come out to one of the windows. You either have a central cashiering in your office where there's, and it's great in small offices, you just go to that person right there. I think Nicholas has centralized cashiering, don't you? That's right. But other offices aren't that way. You may have branch offices, you may have a large building where you've got recording here and court there and several more court areas somewhere else. So you do it the best you can with the best process that you can. So it's going to be paid to you somehow. And once that money comes in, you receipt it. Whether it's at the central court or a court area, it's receipted. Hopefully you're all electronic now, and it's being receipted and captured in a computer system, so that can be all really in the big ether air, one place. Everybody's receipting and documenting that the money has come in. And it's important to know that the amounts of tickets in various areas aren't always the same, meaning some counties have local fees or ordinances that, or you have added teen court, or you have not added the Dory Schlossberg little add-on fee. It's either $3 or $5. It used to be $3, it went to $5. Some counties said, oh no, we're not going to do it at all. So other counties may have the $3 or $5, some counties don't. So those things are different. We can't say, oh, well, that's a $15 fee. What is this check? You have to be, you're all individualized into what the amounts should be. I know this is like really wonky stuff, but we found this I found this very fascinating. I won't cite this to other people. So these are things too that when you also then double check and cross back to the distribution schedule, you say, well, that's a pretty good guide. It's a guide. But we have these other pieces where, traffic has some of those discretionary areas at the beginning that you may or may not add. Dane County has add-ons that other counties don't have. There are 4 counties that have a court cost that other counties don't have. So you do have your individual differences set by local ordinance or law, and that's interesting to note. So then you have a general ledger. So you're receiving, and all this information should be going into your general ledger system. And as such, your system is set up to where your receiving clerk chooses the right GL code. Is that correct? Is that how everybody does it? I was laughing. Are you saying that's because your clerk doesn't always choose the GL? We've had the instance in red light camera where the codes were so close together that the words ran off the screen, and so the clerk said, well, it's the first one. And what that did is actually put the money into a different bucket. So the state would say, why is there money in this bucket? We don't even have these. These fines aren't even set up anywhere in the state. And that's all it was. It was just the selection of a different GL code that ended up with the result being that the money went to a certain place. And that's really the end of all this process. But, so you pick the code, the system assigns this total across the amount received. The system does your breakouts, right? You don't sit there and say 2% of 10 goes here, right? You all do the total. You pick the code and type in the total that you received. Does that work? I see some people nodding heads. Okay. The systems are reprogrammed each year to go along with the distribution schedule. The distribution schedule is generally updated, I'm going to say once, which is usually around late June, early July. As the laws have passed, we get the distribution schedule updated. Sometimes now anymore, it's several times. We have October fees, we have the legislature meeting at different times, changing the laws. We do the best we can to keep that up. It's coded in the colors, you get an advisory with it to tell you hopefully what the changes are. So that causes a change in your system, which also then causes you to go back and make sure it was done right. And that's the other thing, testing. So what we did is we asked in this work group And if you go online, it says best practice, but we also have on the publications portion of the homepage of flclerks.com. If you go there, it's the very first document that comes up. I think it's called Remittance Workflow 2011. We have pages and pages of screenshots where some people in this work group were kind enough to do screenshots to show, once you've received the money, where does it go? And then there's screenshots of where it goes all through their GL and finance systems to show that, yes, agency, you could come in and track one fine and you see where it goes. But think about doing that for every single thing. And that's when it just becomes, that's the part they don't understand. They don't realize how mind-blowing I think that would be. They can sit there all day. You might as well have them do your job. So we have a lot of that kind of information. And you can see that it rolls up every day, it rolls up every week, and it rolls up every month to give you your month-end closeout types of reports. So right now, Chapter 28, 28.245 requires that you send your money due to the state by the 10th of each month. And I know that was difficult when that date changed from the 20th to the 10th. Everybody seems to be doing pretty well. Some counties have countered that by saying, look, I'm going to remit every week. We have a couple handfuls of counties who actually close out and remit weekly. That way you never have to worry about, is it the 10th? Are we past the 10th? Are we at the 10th? You're just remitting weekly. That way you're always by the 10th. Something. It may not be a whole month, but you're remitting. Are you one of them, Mary Grace, Electra? Leon has been in the past, I think. Taylor. We've got a few. Sumter might be. Are you sending weekly? I can't remember. Again, there's a 10 or fewer. But it does sometimes help. And so that is an option if you think about that. But these are all monies that are due to the state. And we have to remember that the state means anything due to state agencies, the courts, the universities, colleges, but it's anything that is run or operated by the state. And at some point we've had discussion, what does that mean? University of Florida, yeah, it means anything due to the state. Now, you may not get things due to the university or college, but we've had it happen. The court, Supreme Court, yes, that's part of the state. The amounts, we document the amounts we check through the clerk systems, back toward cashiering and back into the aggregate totals. You all have done this if you work in this area or know about it or done any audit. You can check them backwards and forwards. You can be checked daily and monthly, and then there's Department of Revenue reports. Every time you're online sending the money to Department of Revenue, it generates a big WordPad file. It's about 500 pages long. But every one of those lines that you've typed things in on has a page. And every day we get, I used to do it in the dailies, I guess I'm not getting it anymore, but we have any number of agencies and staff who have the email from the Department of Revenue every day, so they can track what you're sending through their trust fund. We get the monthly reports. I guess I do get theirs. I delete them. It's a little too much information sometimes. I check the final forfeiture line, but at the end of the month, we get what's called a month-end closeout report. And those reports are extremely helpful to find out where we are as a total, especially for your specific funding for your offices. But if you ever want those reports, you can ask us and we will show you how to get communicated with the Department of Revenue and get those reports. You'll see it in your system, you'll see it coming back around the next day in theirs. So these things are being watched. It is being those reports are being generated through the remittance portal. It is something the Department of Revenue does staff pretty well. It's the portal that includes the state sum tax system. They thought that was so successful for businesses. I mean, they thought, clerks, that's really minor, that's really small. Look at all these businesses. We'll just do another kind of portal. We already have it set up. We've got the websites. People know how to do that. So they set it up for clerks. And they said, oh my gosh, wow, that's a little more complicated than we thought. They didn't realize it, but they ended up putting out worksheets by the statute so that hopefully it would match your month-end reports or closeout reports that you can fill that in. And what we found is a lot of clerks' offices at the month end, they do a closeout report, you do it in your finance system, generates a report, and the clerks are handwriting. They print out the worksheets off the Department of Revenue website and the handwriting, the numbers from your closeout report to their worksheets, and then typing it in. So we documented there was some human interaction there. Those are places where you can get numbers transposed. I know people don't really do that, but it does happen. And there are, we have worked with Department of Revenue fairly often to help correct that. And I think that correction process has smoothed itself out over the years because we really don't get calls anymore. But I know Marcia Rebel is involved in that, and any of you have ever talked to her. I mean, we have asked them, and we would love to have some kind of upload into that system. That's something that we're always talking with them about. Do you have money? Do you have money to do it? Can you do this? That would really help take that human touch out of that one aspect. So that's kind of part of the process. At the end of the month, you're doing a closeout. You're getting numbers that fit the lines on their revenue remittance site. Do you want to show the website real quick? How many of you actually do the remitting and get on the website and do this remitting? No one. This is great. Oh, a couple over here. Thank you. It's really a great website. Now, you do have to have your specific username and password to get into the remittance screens, but it pretty much goes along with the worksheets. And I'm going to show you a little bit of this. She'll find it in a minute. But the Department of Revenue really loves this website. They use this as one of their hallmarks of, I'm not going to say greatness, but of success. They believe that this system was so successful and so positive for you all and for them that they actually took it forward and asked the tax collectors to go electronic as well. And they built a tax collector site. And they were very appreciative of the clerks once they started the tax collector site, even though the tax collectors remit less, or fewer lines, fewer things that you do. So they've used it as sort of a feather in their cap, and it does really work well, and it has lent a lot of credibility to your remittances. It's taken the paper away. You don't have to write checks anymore. You don't have to keep track of your checks. The portal's been in existence since the spring of 2002, and it was coordinated. We did help coordinate that project with the department, and we had several clerk members also on that. So, you can say it's developed for clerks by clerks. It increased the accountability of your money, and it created a snapshot. Because all these people want these reports, it's created a very successful snapshot of what you do. And it helps people explain. Can you go to the tab? Anyway. So we put together this process flow to try to show you how the money went. Really, we tried to show the agencies where does the money go. There it is. This is their the homepage for the revenue remittance system. The clerks have one, the tax collectors have one. There's one for local cities and counties for red light camera. If you actually go on their main screen prior to this, there's all sorts of places, but you don't need to worry about them. The interesting thing about this is it gives you their help desk number. There is a phone number and an email to correct an erroneous submission, and it gives you the CCOC information. Over on the side, the right-hand side is what you need to do. There's a remittance calendar that tells you what dates money is due every month. So it's not really always the 10th, sometimes it's the 8th. If the 10th falls on like a Saturday, you need to do it by the 9th. Things like that. We have a user guide, but there's the worksheets. Do you see about halfway through that list the worksheets? Those are the sheets that you want to print out and use as your guide. That helps you figure out what the statute numbers are, and it is coded to match the distribution schedule. And that's the other very helpful thing that we've done. We've added coding to the distribution schedule, where you'll see an FF51 or FF2, maybe an FW Fish and Wildlife 3. Those align with the lines on the worksheet, so that you should have another double check to make sure that you're putting the money on the correct lines. What we also had an agreement with the department is that we will never change those codes. Those codes will stay the same. We may change the line numbers, On the left, in line 1 may be stricken, but we'll keep line 2. We will never realign the codes. Codes stay the same. So anytime you see the distribution schedule, you can rely on that little code line that we've put in it. Is everybody familiar with the distribution schedule? I know, I'm boring people. We actually put the distribution schedule together with a fairly large work group of clerks in '04. I think the Gypsy was part of that, and some of the other people in here. And it was a massive effort, I will tell you, though. It was a room full of people, and they split all the statutes up and all the different code violations and things up, and they started putting it together in Excel spreadsheets. And if you'll see it now, it's almost an 80-page document. We've put reporting in it. We have put fish and wildlife and hunting in it just recently, and that was exciting. Hopefully you'll never get those tickets. They're a little bit much, but it means a lot to the people who write them. And if you ever have questions, it's true, some of my best friends. If you ever have questions, give me a call. And I do keep it updated, and we do a new one to address the statutes when they pass, and we'll have another one coming. But that's the other thing, is then we talk about where's the money? And the real issue is, if it's a $60 ticket, do you get all 60? Do you ever get, how many people get partial payments? How many people say, oh, I just can't pay today, I'll give you $5. This is an issue. And I think everybody on the outside doesn't really understand that. It's just not that easy. Oh, it's a $10,000 fine. Yeah, let me write a check. And that's really not how it works. We have partial payments. You are encouraged to take partial payments. The laws tell you to take partial payments. And it's difficult sometimes to pay these really big fines and fees right off. You probably even get civil filings without fee. Those would be the easy ones, but you have $300 to file an alert. Oh, sorry, it came in without the check. So what we find out is that there's a distribution of the money. So we have priorities, and the distribution chart shows your priorities. We talk about the priorities in Chapter 28, 2.246, about what gets paid first. Who knows what gets paid first? State, but is it all the state? Is it everybody in the state? Is it general revenue? Yes, general revenue. Who gets paid second? You should all know that. All know that. The clerk is second. Third is state trust funds. And then the last one is your locale, the cities or municipalities. It kind of makes it a little bit crazy for programming. Computer systems, you can do service charges. There's all sorts of there's any number of iterations that can happen when you start taking pieces of a payment and how it spreads out and how it splits out. Hopefully your systems are programmed to do it according to the statute. The auditors that come in will be auditing the way your systems do this. They're going to do spot checks and double checking to make sure things are distributed appropriately. And what we documented, this is where we can have any distribution. I mean, the report is the height, the color chart. So partial payments can delay some agency from getting their money, right? Everybody doesn't get paid right up front. Everybody gets paid when they get paid. And so that's why, like some of these last tier, the dollars or the 15 cents, they really are not sure where their money is because maybe you didn't get paid yet. The bulk of your money is going to general revenue, then to your office. Well, not really your office, it's really to your 14201 big fine forfeiture fund to be allotted back to you. And so those are the kinds of things we tried to show everybody on the outside clerk world as to how it really worked. You know, we tried to show them, one of the counties did these really great pie charts for us. And Cindy's finding, we did one on think Miami-Dade did these. One on traffic, on non-moving. Now, see how much? This is what they took in by money and by percentage. But you know, the state revenue, the state got it first, and everybody else got theirs in priority order. So we thought these were fairly interesting, kind of change down, to show is that this isn't all, you know, everything isn't just paid like 1%. And then it's split all up. And the county and the city ones are different. So that made somewhat of an impression on the state agencies, and they said, huh? And they started really seeing how complex this was. It's not just, you know, where's my money? It's when did you get it? How did you send it? How do I figure out when you sent it? And all of that. So you may end up with a partial payment plan. You might just get $10 or $15 for a long time. And that just may start filling up those first buckets from GR. And then you're the fine and forfeiture fund. And my gosh, when are you going to get that load of money? When is that Dory Schlossberg ever going to be paid? You know, doesn't it go to the school board, I think? They may be saying, gosh, you know, last year we got this much, but we're only up to this much this year. I'm not sure when I'm going to get my money. So the other thing that we found out is the precision of the workflow from receipt to remittance is highly dependent on programming and testing of the system. And that's the only way you can figure out if things are working right. You might be doing it right, if the system doesn't do it right, it's not right. So the human aspect, and while you're doing that, and everything's looking right, we still have that human aspect of data entering. So we want to make sure that while you want to pay attention, I guess, that while you're doing data entry with parts where you touch the numbers, that you're doing that right. And that's hard to check. All you have is an auditor at the end saying, well, those numbers look funny, but I'm not sure why. Let's go back and look. And we think that the major anomalies in the human error happen in traffic because it's just so darn complex. And once you start getting partial payments in that, there's too many buckets and too much to keep track of. The other thing that we did try to show everybody, and this is kind of toward the end, is that when you have, let's see if I can find it quickly, bear with me. And these are all the different breakouts for single traffic and such. All right, we have payment tiers. And we have all these reasons. We tried to document as many reasons as we could as to why something might not be paid in full. It's really not just partial payments or the system. It's all these things. What if you got a bad check or credit card? You've already credited the case, but that doesn't show up for a while. I mean, these things become kind of sticky wickets in the processing. What if you got paid and you get a late fee and then it goes to collection? You have nothing until that collection agent gets it. This is the kind of stuff that these agencies really don't understand. Well, you know, a partial payment, I should be getting my money in a few months, right? Well, what happens if they requested a hearing? Let's say it's traffic. Well, let's see, in about day 25, they come in and say, I really want a hearing. Okay. And it's set out another month, maybe 2 months. And then they come in and say, I can't make it that day, can you move it? You might be able to move it, maybe not. Let's say it's now 90 days and they've come in for a hearing, and the judge dismisses it. Nobody gets any money. So the agencies are going, oh, we have all these tickets written, where's my money? This is the kind of thing, you know, partial payment plan order. And we're back to square one again. When are you going to get the money? Well, you got the $10 first or the $25. So it can take months to years to get the money trickling through the system. So it's not just as easy as saying, one ticket equals one payment. It's sort of like all this data out here on fines and tickets and payments and money. And we've always said that the money and the data don't flow together, but this is why. You can match them up, but there's really no report or system or one central place. You can say, oh, I have this great correlation table, and we have all these tickets and all these little payments, and I can tell you where it all went. It would be, the report for that kind of information would be huge. It would be mind-boggling. There's, I would love if somebody could say, yeah, I thought of a way to do that. That's really great. We're going to put that all together so we can have a snapshot all the time in my office of everything that's outstanding or being paid or whatever paid off, and where all the money went, by bucket, by date, by... It's a lot more complex than everybody thinks. Criminal is worse. Criminal is worse. You've got higher fines. You've got longer time. They go away to jail or prison. So while you may turn things into a lien, there's no money. None. Nobody's getting anything. So you can see all the different reasons. You guys can probably think of more reasons why you might have a delayed payment, or why the money just is not there. So when the agencies say, "Where's my money?" we try to explain to them that it's really not that easy. Can we take you through some of the process flow? And that, so I mean, in a way, in a part of like maybe the best practice type idea, this might be not part of your best practice, but information and data as to why there's not this one-to-one correlation of everything. But I think these are interesting things to know about. This is all part of the report that is on the internet, on our publications tab. And it is really good if you do have agencies or groups or city or county coming to your office saying, hey, traffic was up last year. I got a lot of money for traffic. What's going on? You can say, look, how much time do you have? We can do an education session, or I can just tell you, your red light camera tickets are all getting dismissed. Or such and such isn't being written right now because the judge has been dismissing the school zone tickets in this one zone. We had some real avid officers there last year, and now she's dismissing them all. So they've stopped writing. We've had a spate of criminal break-ins, and the judge has just decided he's not going to charge what he was charging before, or he's dismissing them all. There's so many factors to where's my money that I would urge you to look at your process flow. Check out this document, or the city's best practice document that's pretty much the same report wherever you find it. Double check, make sure that you're doing all the steps to get your money documented appropriately. Make sure that your audits are coming back and double spot checking and double checking. Make sure that you're data entering or hand coding, typing in your money amounts appropriately. If you make mistakes, check them quickly so the Department of Revenue can help you reverse your monies and do whatever needs to be done for a corrected payment. And just stay on top of it. I think I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, unless there are any questions. Yes?
On top of everything you got there, we've got a judge now that's helping the economy, and he's letting them work it off with the pay.
Yeah, community service.
So, there is no money there.
Right, and they're paying to be supervised, are they not? So the money's really going to the sheriff's office or whatever entity is supervising. Probation. Yeah. Is there anybody else? Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Don Murphy. I'm from Volusia County. I'm here to talk to you about collections, not as an expert, but just someone that works in the courts that's got in the collection business. Not by choice, but by necessity. About 3 years ago, we were looking at collections in Volusia County, and on the performance measures, one of the areas we were struggling with, and one of the hardest ones to fix, is collections in the criminal courts. Ours was significantly low, and we knew we needed to do something about it. And so we had, let's see, this works for us. So we had to do something. But like everyone else, we were struggling with designating positions to staff that kind of an effort. We couldn't put a lot of people to it. So what we decided to do when we first got into this was to put the plan into the court. We weren't even doing payment plans at that time for misdemeanor court. We were just signing someone up, they could put their sentences on, and after all, after that, they were going to just pay their fines. That's what they're supposed to do. These were considered punishment, right? So, but that wasn't happening. So we got payment plans together, we worked with the courts, and we put it in the courtroom, the court clerk handled that for us, and it just went out, just like every other piece of paperwork. So we enrolled them during court, the court clerks handled it, the person got a piece of paper, they signed it, and by then, we know once they signed that piece of paper, that meant they were going to come in and pay it. If they signed that paper, now I'm not sure if they made it out of the court with that piece of paper, but they did sign it. And it had limited involvement in it for us at the time, and that's what we needed. So we were doing something. They were in payment plans. That was just going to work. Well, it really didn't. We went down, not only were we only at 32%, we went down to 29% in our misdemeanor collection. So it went down. Well, why did that happen? Well, here's what we think that happened. There really was no incentive for the defendant to pay. They got a piece of paper just as fast as they got everything else that goes on in misdemeanor court. You know, everybody knows how fast that goes. So they didn't probably read it. There was an incomplete explanation in the process. You got more explanation of how to take care of your payment plan for your computer or your dryer or your television set than you did for your fines and your court costs. They were out the window. And there really was no follow-up after initiation. We sent them out with their plan. It was up to them to come back to us to pay. For then they were in trouble. That's how we looked at it at that time. That really wasn't the way to do it. We knew it wasn't working for us. We wanted to do something else. So we started looking. About February of 2010, we heard about a workshop in Nassau County CCOC was putting on to teach people a little bit about collections. So we wanted some of that because we didn't know anything about it. We wanted to know more about how to do this. We're going to do it, wanted to do it right. So we went up there and listened to the best practices of collections from other people just around the state of Florida and also around the country, what they were doing to collect. And then we went down to Polk County because they were doing collections with the collection group and dedicated group of people and talked to them about it. And saw something there that we knew was going to be a little bit more than handing out a payment plan in the courtroom. It was going to be a little bit more involved. Still couldn't devote a whole lot of staff into that because it's not their habit. In Volusia County since 2009, we were down about 41 positions on our court side. So we enlisted one of our senior project specialists that used to be a former probation officer. We thought that was a good skill to have in collections. She also had background in IT, another good skill to have in collections. And had her sign up to get the process going. We got great support from the clerk to work with this. And we work with one judge at a time. We have 6 judges that work on all of our county criminal courts across both DeLand and Daytona. We knew that in order for this to work, we had to work with one judge at a time, and not all of them at once, to get consensus with that one judge in their courtroom, because that's what was important. We also needed about as much technology as we could apply to this situation because we didn't have people to do it. We needed something in place that would do the kinds of things automatically that we couldn't do with bodies. So we contracted with a company called iClef out of San Antonio, Texas. They are dedicated in compliance software. That's what they do. And with that, we were able to do the things that we needed to do, which was create payment plans, automate them, put them in the system, and set them up with all kinds of notices and postcards and calls and so forth that we couldn't physically do. When we enroll a plan, we have someone come down from our courtroom to our counters. They sign up. We put it into the system. We generate that. It has a payment amount they're supposed to pay. We extract whatever we can on that first day. We get the same kind of stories about people that say they don't have any money to pay, but they really have nice gold jewelry or a smartphone. That's a challenge in export. We get what we can on the first day. That was a new thing for us. By the way, that's the best thing you can do when you start with collections, is to get something the very first day. Because you may never see them again after that, but at least you got something. Then with the system, once it's integrated into the computer system, into our case management system, it tracks when their payments are due. And we send out a postcard automatically. The system generates a card. It's cheaper postage. It's no handling. It's really very easy to do. We send a postcard before they're late because we want them to come in on time. We send a postcard out to them after they've been late because it's going to go to collections if they don't come in. We also have it integrated to an automatic calling system from a company called Voice Broadcast. What that does, in addition to the postcard, they get a phone call. We can set that call up at any time. You've got those phone calls from various things, I'm sure. But those kind of calls come out to the center. It's just continually notifying somebody they have an obligation, and we don't let that go. The system integrates to DHS&P for suspensions. We pay through AMSCOT, get integrated there. We also send to a third-party collection agency. So we've done lots of things to try and pick up the slack of what we couldn't physically do through automation. We now send those people to our front counter. The judge immediately after sentencing sends them right to the counter. Yes, we lose a few, and we give back to those few, but we send them right to our counter where they take care of those people that can't leave the courthouse. We have to go down there and enroll in their plan. We make them wait. They sit and wait and fill out an application. The application looks much like what you have to fill out whenever you do any kind of credit buy that you buy for any kind of major appliance that you can sit down and fill all that credit information. We give them their first payment, they make something, and then off they go. So they're using our front counters of the staff that we already have. That does mean we have to take a number sign at both of our counters that they fill in the land. Like I said earlier, we do send out postcards, and we call, we notify, we get after these people to let them know that this is a responsibility. So what happened? It took us about 9 months to get through all 6 judges across the county in the 2 court locations, and we improved our collections rate for misdemeanors from 29% to 35%. So in order to make this go, it really needs to be a momentum, and to get momentum, it's got to be a priority at all levels. One thing I didn't talk about was felony court. That's another area that needs to be pursued for collections. Even our own performance measure is extremely low what we expect to get from assessments. Out of the 100% of all the assessments we take in felony court, we are only required to perform to 9% because of the perception that all those people are in prison. But these days, the Department of Corrections is letting a lot of those people out. But in order to get at those collections, we have to get a better touch with the Department of Corrections themselves, the probation agency that works with them. We had the Department of Corrections in our office and talk to them about a relationship where we would get those assessments for those people that owe us fines and costs. And they smiled, and they were polite, but we never heard from them again. In fact, they're not returning our phone calls. So we have to get at that. That's a collection area that we can get at. It's out there. Those people are out there walking around. It just needs to be a priority. So for us, what's happened since then? Well, we've been working at this for a while. I'm not here to tell you that we're making great strides in high percentage collections because we're not. We're actually struggling still. We do all this. We are getting great cooperation from the court. We do have a lot of automation that's doing a lot of things we can't do manually. But what's the bottom line? Well, in reality, we're still struggling in misdemeanor court at 30%. Why? Well, there are some factors, and we're looking into those. One of those factors is that in Volusia County, we have a number of people that are homeless or don't have addresses and hard to pursue. They're never going to pay. They're sitting on the books as a collective. What are we going to do about that? Starting June 6th in our county court in Daytona, we're going to put together what Judge Schumann calls a safe docket, where crimes of low level are pushed in through the social agencies to divert these cases into community service right away. So if they can't pay, let's make them do some work. The clerks at the counters also have the authority from the courts to modify sentences on these payment plans so they can truly identify that they cannot pay to convert that to community service. And that's something that we're doing. Causes? Well, clerks, this is a new thing for us. We're not used to being collected. We're court clerks. We're violent. We can data entry. That's what we do. In fact, if you look at our performance measures for the things like that, filing and docketing new cases. We're blowing the roof in and we've lost positions. Well, we've got to take a different hard look at what our priorities should be, is what should be higher and what should be lower. We're at this point, we're focusing more of our attention to actually collecting revenue. We need additional ways to create convenience payments. There are several ways out there, and I'm going to talk about them in a second. We also need to treat financial sanctions as penalties. It's not just a suggestion that you should come in and pay a fine for criminal court costs. If it isn't more than just a suggestion, then why is it considered part of the sentence? The judge tells them this is your penalty, and then they walk away, and they forget about it. And so do most of the folks in the system. It takes up a lot of our time just to put it on paper and process it through the system. We should take it more seriously. That means we need to learn how to beat collectors. We can't keep running in place. It's not doing us any good. We've got to change our system. So for us, as we go through, we look at doing this different ways as we go along. We're learning as we go. Much of what we do these days, we're learning as we go. We gathered some more information on some success stories, and I think we're going to hear about some of that later this morning from Seminole County. We went down to Seminole County. They have a focused team of collectors of 6 people that work on all their collections. They take everything they have and they split it up, and they bird dog that list to make sure that the collections come in. And they get all of their misdemeanor assessments paid into their office. Some clerk's offices take the money through their probation offices, and the probation office then divert it back into the clerk's office. Not here. In our office, we actually get our payments from our misdemeanors office for cases on probation about a week after, not immediately. We also talked to the folks in Citrus County. They're doing some things with automated payments that are interesting, including ACH, where you enroll in your payment plan and go right into somebody's checking and savings account automatically. So you don't have to send out this postcard unless you run out of their checking account or the savings account. It comes out automatically. Or they have the ability to pay off the website. So we're not doing that yet. We've heard about it. We're looking into it. There's a lot of good ideas out there when you talk it around. We know that we have to keep what works and revise what doesn't. That's part of the way that we learn in this process. So what's the next step for Volusia County? And again, I don't come to you as an expert. I come to you as someone that's trying to do collections. We're going to continue to look at automating in different ways to stop keystrokes on even in the entry of payment plans so that we can devote more of our time to talking to people about making payments. We're revising our focus solely on misdemeanor plans in the county criminal court. We have criminal traffic and misdemeanors blend in our court dockets. Our county criminal courts are reflecting at a rate of 70% even before we did payment plans. And they're still doing that with payment plans. So we think those cases don't need to be enrolled in the extra process so we can devote more attention to misdemeanors. We're going to look at limiting payment plan adjustments. We're getting a lot of cases that payment plans are front counters at a cliff. There's a story. And when they come into that story, there's time taken up on their front counter. So it's delaying what really needs to be done. You need to pay, you continue service, or we're done. They'll go to collections and be suspended and so forth. We have to beef up our knowledge on collections. We have to learn more about the way to collect better. So we're going to do that and arm our clerks with that kind of ability. And we will adapt to alternative methods for payment so that we pick it into different sources. We want to remove all doubt about effort. In Volusia County, we are trying very hard to collect despite our challenges in staffing. So we're going to do that wherever possible. We are constrained by budgeted resources just like everyone else. And actually, if we had more budgeted resources devoted strictly to this area, we might see a boost of the collections. That's what we're doing in Volusia County. That's my information. Again, I'm not an expert, but I can tell you some of my stories, both successes and challenges. And I'm happy to do that anytime. Yes, Chip.
The ACA, you do that through your software company, or how do you do that?
We're contacting a vendor that's happening in Citrus County right now, but we haven't even started that yet, but we heard about that and said, hey, that's a good idea, we want to try to do it.
Question about DOC. Do you guys not get the monthly email or whatever from DOC that says who's being released in your county?
Yeah, Yes, we do. In fact, in our county, what we've done is we've signed up for people that are in jail, for prison, we're in Vines Network. We're a victim. We're a victim just like everybody else. We're in the Vines Network. So when somebody's in there, we get an email that says, hey, this guy's out of jail, and we pursue it. Yes.
Do you know how many approximate cost of that laptop system?
It varies by population, but for our county, it was $8,900 a year to lease the software. And that includes the software and the maintenance. And they've been very generous in the configuration support and maintenance.
How do you get signed up for that line notification?
It's right out there on the website. You can just look at the website for Department of Corrections and get into it. Actually, if you contact us, we'll show you how to do it too.
Do you guys get a lot of pro-se motions as far as on your payment plans? Or do you find that you don't because you have the 6 judges involved, you have a sufficient hearing for them to show up and that kind of thing?
We don't get a lot.
Well, so ever since our collections report went away 2 years ago, we get a good many of those, and I have the distinct honor of responding to every one of them.
I'll tell you what we do get. Now, though. Probation cases in county court are 27% down. We're getting those cases now. So we get the opportunity to get that.
Well, I guess that's the double-edged sword. If you do have to pull the regular court presence, maybe there's something much we didn't used to until went away 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I will tell you, we are not collection support at all. This is directed from the court right down to our office. We are a collections office.
Tom, what are your processes set up by administrative board with the court or how?
Ours is just by court. We don't have an administrative board. We have it right on the board. It's not with the assignment or it would set case by case.
Modify the plans and things like that.
All part of it. We actually have a list of community services elected that we can work to as well.
And a lot of my customers will set up their field and their user base. So I receive the check and everything from the bank.
That's good. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Randy told me I had to show up today and talk to you guys about an exciting subject. About civil traffic, you guys are all aware there's statute 3215-1A that basically says the DHS&B has to remove suspension from driver's license records after 7 years. And that's also replicated in the traffic rule 6.575. What's interesting about the traffic rule, the legal counsel talked about this. Legal counsel talked about this a while ago. But in the traffic rule, it says, for the purpose of record retention, pursuant to General Record Schedule 81. Anybody know where that is? Anybody read 81? Let me check how pretty it is. It's one of those speckled copies I got from the Department of State, and the date on it's 1970. Right? And when I called the librarian over there, she said, that's been superseded. Why do you want that? Well, I got it just so that we could see, well, what is it that the traffic code is referring us to? Because clearly, if we're using it for something, we should know what it is. And it's an old chancery record. It talks about chancery case files and circuit civil, which we know traffic is not. And it just talks in general about chancery case files, common law case files, and civil action case files, and what to do with them, and how to hold them for 10 years. The civil ones are 10 years and whatnot. It has nothing to do with traffic. Says nothing about payments, says nothing about anything that's pertinent to traffic. Why does the traffic rule refer to that rule? I have no idea. So, what we're left with is the traffic rule refers to that, and then it says, for the purpose of record retention pursuant to that, any case files with an outstanding or unsatisfied D6 shall be considered disposed of 7 years after this submission of the D6 by the clerk to the department. If the clerk disposes of a file, the department shall be notified. Well, for fun, the legal counsel group kind of talked. We wanted to figure out, well, who dismisses cases in their office? And do you dismiss the money? And what do you do? Do you close it? Do you leave it open? And, you know, this isn't really statistical, only topic. But it was interesting, of the 8 clerks that had the discussion, there were only 3 three of the DAs did not dismiss the cases. The other 5 dismissed the cases. And they did that pursuant to the rule that says first this level. So we were talking, and thank goodness FACC has a better memory than I do, and we did refer to that in the best practice on collections, and there was a recommendation in the best practice that said the clerk should consider not closing, not dismissing the monies in those cases because the money is separate from the actual file. That even if the DHS chooses to dispose of its file, wipe out the D6, that doesn't mean the clerk's money or the money that the clerk collects on behalf of the state has to go away. And so there's a brief reference to it in the collections best practice. And then what we got to thinking was, well, if we have to revise the best practice anyway, let's look at it from the standpoint of something we discussed yesterday in legislation in House Bill 7095, Section 13, that changed this Chapter 95 that deals with those statute of limitations. We now have a new provision in 95.11, a new sub-11, that says that there basically is no statute of limitations on when an action can be commenced to collect corporate costs, funds, and fees. So it seems like a kind of unique convergence of the planet's time period to say, look at what you're currently doing. If you're dismissing these cases, if you're dismissing these monies, given the new legislation that we have, given the old reference, and I think clearly the rule needs to be revised, but that'll take 2 years of someone's life to have reference removed. But really to think about it from the standpoint of leaving those cases open, I will say in Leon, we never close those cases. And so when someone comes to the window to pay a ticket and we look their name up, we do a name search, and you want to pay one we got this year, we'll also say, well, sir, ma'am, do you realize you have a ticket from 2005 that you haven't paid? And they shriek and they moan and they carry on and they're really and gnashing their teeth, but a lot of times we do get money that we would have otherwise gotten. And so, I mean, I think it's a palpable way of showing once again that the clerks are trying to collect the money, that we can consider how you handle those cases, perhaps not closing them. It doesn't mean you have to go and send out 5,000 letters, but clearly if someone's paying and you're doing a name search, perhaps you could capture something that you wouldn't otherwise have captured. In the 8 counties when we talked about it, there were 3 of the 8 who had administrative orders told them to close the cases. That's something that you may want to reconsider or broach with your chief judges, given the new legislation that's come out in 795. I think that certainly gives you some fuel to go to them and say, can we reconsider this order, or we really need to collect money, and by the way, it benefits everyone. We just asked some various questions of the 8. Did you have an administrative order that directed it? Did you dismiss the case? Did you dismiss the money? And like I said, there were 3 who did not dismiss the cases. There were 4 who did not dismiss the money. Someone dismissed the case but didn't dismiss the money. For the ones who did not dismiss the money, all 4 of them used collection agencies. For the ones that used collection agencies, if they closed the traffic case, they would have called that case from collections. So, something else to consider. Then another question we had asked, do you keep the person's driver's license suspended, even on those old cases? Even if DHS, even if the 7 years, once that gets wiped, clearly you wipe that, but you keep it suspended up until that time. And didn't get a whole lot of answers on that, but one person said no. So, like I said, 8's not statistical, but I did find it interesting that here's one more area where I think we could all benefit from a revision of the best practice and perhaps achieve more consistency in how we approach that. So it's just worth considering in the legislation. So thank you.
With that provision in your mind, would that be prospective that we could make that application? Or keeping those cases open, could we somehow go back and apply that new collection piece to hold the case, or do we have to?
Given that I don't think that the traffic rule ever said that the clerks had to dismiss the monies, if there's some easy way to do that, and that just depends on what your applications clearly allow. I don't think there's anything, that violates your being able to collect on that. It just depends on what your system leads you with. That it like everything else, so you have no, you just have a record and it's inactive. So that would just,
I think, rated that would depend on what their applications provide to them.
You know, we were doing that because we were closing in because the A was dismissed and it's going to be closed and all of a sudden a light bulb went on not that long ago, and we decided that we were going to keep the money separate and keep those collections separate, and we retroactive was part of this. Retroactive on that.
Oh, that's great.
How did you set the files up, Mary, to do that? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, our system tracks, the monies, and so even though the dockets we show this is closed 7 years past, we still have an open record in our system. We're looking at the number and the amount that was assessed and all of that. So we just send this to keep those collections open within the system. Try to collect, send those to collection, our collection agencies to see what they can do with them. Now, of course, they are required to collect them, but still, that's a lot of money because we're closing lots of cases.
If I could you send us what documentation you have on your procedures so that we can consider it when we start looking at all these?
And as part of that goes, folks, any internal procedures that you might send to us as we revisit the collection best practice, we can send it into that would really help us get started. One of the things that I wanted to cover this morning is we now have an agreement with the Division of Lottery to assist in collecting fines, fees, and court costs that are owed to the various clerks and courts in the state. And what that will entail is when there's a winner that has the benefit of $600 or more, the lottery folks will run a query against the CCIS database to determine if there's a hit, filter it down, and work through the process. What they will need then is contact information in the various clerk's offices to validate that the debt is still owing, and will probably need maybe some documentation from your office. We're going to be working with them very closely to get that kind of information out. Again, another little piece that might have some collection benefits to us without a really huge impact on it. So again, the CCIS is going to be a major component of that. We ask you to continue your updates on the data submissions to CCIS and work with us with that. Another big thing that we need to talk about is the PD collection fees that's in the best practice. Rose, I hate to put you on the spot, but St. Lucie County ran into a big issue with their public defender just a few days ago that generated a very nasty letter from PD to the clerk that the clerk wasn't being responsible and wasn't collecting the PD application fee. And when you boiled it all down, what was going on is the public defender insisted that the clerk, where the $50 application fee had not been collected, and that case had been dismissed, they were demanding that the clerk go out and collect that $50 and then allow the applicant to seek a refund of that under the statute. So we're going to have to develop the best practice to get that clarified, and I think we've let the PD know that that is not the application process and how that works. And once the case is dismissed under 938, is it?
938 or 938.
That the money's not collected, it's not due and owing, it's been dismissed, there's nothing to collect.
those kind of things and the best practices of on collection for the public defender. Another major component, yes, it's
Randy, are you saying that if they filled out the PD application, we charge them $50, and next month when they come to docket sign and the case is dismissed, that 50 is uncollectible?
that's the way the statute says under, what is it,
I believe it's 93809.
938 or 9, yes.
That was actually brought up a couple of years ago at a summer conference when we were in, because St. County wasn't doing that as well. But if it's no crossed or dismissed or acquitted for any reason under that statute, it says the defendant can't be held responsible for any type of cost or fees, which is included, and it specifically states the PD statute number inside there, including that. And that if the defendant has already paid that, the clerk needs to issue a certificate to them so they can seek reimbursement from the JAC. So after 2 years ago, when we spoke about that at conference, we went back and changed our policy so that if it's no cross, no information, dismissed for any reason, we just take that off. So then the question is, should it actually be a waived fee, or should it just be taken off the case? And that's something they're going to address in the best practice. But we started taking them off. Our public defender said she needed that money. We didn't have any right to take that off, and the discussion pursued. So, but it did come back that that is the correct interpretation. We were doing it correctly, and that PDP is not collectible at that point.
you know, we felt their pain.
Yeah.
So we're, as you encounter these particular situations, whatever, if you please let us know as we revisit these best practices. We need to know the nuances so we can address those. Another major component I want to mention this morning is we had a discussion yesterday in the legislative piece about the reopen components. As soon as I get back to the office on Monday, I'm taking them all off. I'm going to send out an email to everybody asking for your input on the reopen issues that you might have in your office, or questions that you might want to have addressed in the development of the reopen. Clerk Johnson has shared with that practice at the practical bill, so we got to get busy and get some of these done. So I'm saying yes, ma'am, we're going forward. But if you could send all those pieces into me, send them my email. I think most of you have it. But we want to be able to address those reopen issues. Try to avoid some litigation that may be coming forward as a result of the change in the law. You know, we've had several lawsuits with the existing reopen fees that brought a lot of money down there for everybody to get in. And we want to do this thing right and get the information and guidance out to you as best we can. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is in Senate Bill 1964, you'll note that the distribution schedule that FACC, that myself and others have put together is not codified in the law for the association. We'll be developing that and sending that out to the boards and clerks and whoever else is listed there. And we do that now in consultation with the courts. Our hope is that the courts will look at the distribution schedule and will work with us to understand what the fines are and the applicable amounts that are to be assessed. I think that's probably a good process that we'll be working with. As you know, in the earlier versions of law, the hospital is actually responsible for developing that distribution schedule. And they never were able to do that. We took that task on, and they blessed it, so to speak, and now we change the laws, and it's responsibility of the association in consultation with the courts to put that together. And work that we need you folks to help us with as we put it together. The last thing I want to cover, I know we're getting a little bit of a break, but make a better effort of collecting whatever is due and owed. Our budgets are contingent upon revenue, those kind of things. If you think of an idea, if you come up with a suggestion, send it to us. And Ms. Johnson mentioned that they have a staff here at the FACC. We want to coordinate this best practice and cover as much as we can. So put in the suggestions. We've got a split timetable that we're working on a number of these things. But give us all the input that you possibly can. I don't really have anything else to cover, but we can use this time to talk about any issue.
Brandy, I would suggest to the clerk that you check with your department credit. The issue going on right now, we have a hearing to settle tomorrow, where they do not collect court money if it's referred to them. So the issue we got is that somebody's had a piece of property with a house on it and wanted to sell it. So the title company got with us and got with the Department of Corrections, and when it was all said and done, the money was paid to the Department of Corrections. They took their money out and gave it back to the defendant. And those amounts were supposed to be satisfied so that the purchaser of that home had a clear title to their property. Now we have a hearing because the Department of Corrections did not pay the clerk's court filing cost money of $1,510 out of the proceeds from the sale of that home. So I got an attorney and we filed for a hearing, and it's next week. It's what I'm to do about those judgments that's on file that affects that sale of that property. So if you don't know, the Department of Corrections is telling me that they are not allowed to collect a fine and cost that's been converted to a civil claim when a person goes to prison or whatever. St. Lucie County just had that same conversation with our probation people about 3 weeks ago, and we're working through something with the judges. So, because if it is converted to a civil lien, they are just totally ignoring it.
So these are liens that are actually recorded in the official record.
They are.
And the title companies are not picking that up as a lien?
They did pick it up. And what I did, in our case, there was 4 cases. There was money assessed that was a balance in those. And the judge told the defendant, when you pay the restitution, which was $10,000, that he would convert the rest to a civil lien. Well, when the title company did the title search, they seen all those liens there. So we prepared a schedule that showed how much was due in each case. Some of it had all been paid except our recording fee. So we totaled that up, gave it to the title company. They have a letter from the Department of Corrections that says how much was owed. But the amount that the Department of Corrections gave to the title company included all their supervision fees and all that kind of stuff, and not our money, which their fees amounted to about what ours was. So we were waiting on the check. None of us was in, we were waiting on the check so I could clear those liens and post the money to that account. And we didn't get them, so when we contacted them, they said they didn't collect our money after we converted the lien. The conversation we had with them also included that the judge ordered in the probation for us that everything be paid to the Department of Corrections, so which doesn't allow our collection department to go after that money because it's ordered to be paid to them. But they said to us, he can say that, but if it's in a civil lien, we are not going to collect it. We are not going to touch that money at all.
Rose, what do you think you're going to do then with the new legislation that says when you record the judgment, the criminal judgment, that now constitutes a lien,
Right.
5510, and you don't have to re-record it, and it lasts for 20 years now? Is the DOC now going to say?
That's correct.
The criminal thing acts as a civil lien, and we're not going to do that either?
Right, we're having that conversation with them. We even went back to the judge and said, can we take this in our collections? He said, no, you can't touch that. They have been ordered to collect that as part of probation. Probation says, we don't care, we're not going to, it's a civil lien. So we're in conversation with them right now and trying to get some procedures set, so, because our felony collections are down around 5% now that they've started doing that rather than our 9%. So it's affecting us in our performance measure, so trying to work that through that.
Amen.
What we did, the attorney set up a hearing for the circuit judge next week, and we sent notice to the Secretary of the Department of Corrections in Tallahassee. And I think that, to resolve our issue, is all I need is direction from the court what to do about the satisfaction of those court judgments that's in those cases.
Okay.
My question is, if he orders me to satisfy that and I don't have any money, what happens then?
Well, I think you just answered the question. If you don't have the money to satisfy it, I don't know how you can. If you've got and again, in my mind, I'm certainly not an attorney, but in my mind, if you've got fines and fees that have not been paid, they're still due up. And I think your hearing that you have scheduled is probably a good thing to pursue.
I think that the judge is probably going to order me to satisfy those judgments because it's not fair to that person who got that piece of property to get in an issue between the clerk and the court and the Department of Corrections on collection of money that they thought was taken out of the sale of that property and paid for those liens to be satisfied.
Well, I don't know, there's no staff attorneys in the room, but if you've got a valid, recorded judgment lien that says you're owed, I don't know how the judge could rule against you or put you in the mix with the case.
Remember, the defendant's got the money, and the defendant has the Department of Corrections. You still got a lien against the property.
Well, I have that lien, but I feel like, because the title company acted in good faith because what I did on those four judgments, figured out the interest, figured out the recording fees, because I charged a $10 recording fee at the flood end of the case to pay for putting that judgment on record and $10 to satisfy. So there's a $20 fee added to there for us. So the title company made the check for all the interest and the recording fees directly to me. So I have the recording money. But my problem is, I don't feel like, and the defendant, she came to my office numerous times to make sure that we included everything she owed in that land transaction transfer so that we got all our money. But, and she should have known, the money's gone now, she don't have it. Is it fair to the people who got the property to have a judgment on their property?
Well,
And I don't think that's fair.
there may be an action against the title company for not noting that, so you may have recourse there against the title company.
Well, I can tell you what happened when the Department of Corrections won't collect anything that a title company has called me and asked us, so I'll get my money, and if there's any left, they'll get this. That's the challenge.
One of the things that we could do, Rose, anyway, if you could send me whatever you've got, kick it up to leadership or whatever, and reach out to the Department of Corrections. Maybe it's just a process where we can sit down with those folks in Tallahassee and explain the problem and see what might be done from that standpoint. And I know that we want to actively try to facilitate that. So if you can send me the stuff.
I know that there's a lot of people out there that can't pay, but just in one day, the Department of Corrections brought me 30 certificates for completion of community service work that amounted to $32,000 in my small county. So I went and talked to the judge about it, and what the judge told me was that when I sentence them to prison from now on, I'm going to tell him when you get out, you need to see the clerk court first night, and he's doing that.
I think that's an excellent point, folks. Just sit down with your judges, sit down with your court folks or whatever, and try to work these things out, because money isn't obligated. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, sir, just trying to re-engage back into how to increase our collection effort. Has it ever been suggested to maybe champion a team of people who look at, the fines and distribution scale? I find as a new person coming into the clerk of courts that the problem is not the distribution schedule, it's the lack of education of what it all means. As a finance director, I look at a distribution scale and I can self-teach myself what that means and get some guidance, but I have accountants 3 don't even know a $60 fee is broken up 10 ways. So I don't know if, like I said, if anybody's ever suggested that, it would be great to create this united front in collections by uniforming us, by chartering a team that uses these 20-year vets and 30-year vets in the court system and tell us, hey, how are you doing the process truly, but champion a team to go around to our individual counties and maybe actually physically look at our processes. Just because I've noticed at 2 conferences, we always get down to talking about one particular case, and I don't know about anybody else, but I get lost in the jargon because I'm like, it doesn't apply to me, and I'm not engaged anymore. And I just really would like to suggest maybe somebody that could help us educate our people, educate us a little bit more, and not do business as it's been for the last 20 years, because it seems not to be working.
That's an excellent point. And yesterday it was suggested that we need to get back out on the road for a regional workshop. We did that a few years ago. I don't see any reason why we can't revitalize that, if you will, because your point is well taken. The more information we can give you, the more education that you have, the better able it is to answer those questions that Beth was talking about earlier. When your cities or counties come in and say, where's the money? We get calls all the time from the state agencies, the crime talking folks. We know all these cases are going up, the money's not coming in, what's going on, you're not sending us our money. So your point will take it. If nothing else, maybe we can arm you better to answer those questions that you might get. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Any other questions?
Why don't we send a lump sum to the state, they'll do their own accounting?
Well, that has been a possibility. And we try for that.
We'll charge them 8% for our
Welcome to Gator Country. I love it. Rose?
Brady, I can verify that this did not allow the cost of 939.06. I don't remember if I said 938 or 939.
I get it.
One more thing.
Yes.
We had someone in our office that actually went to go renew their license not too long ago. And when they went in, they actually would not renew their license here in the state of Florida because they had a ticket from 1985 out of Alabama, Tennessee, some things going on there. But with that fact, she's like, I've been renewing my license all along. Why all of a sudden do I have to pay this 1985 ticket? There's some kind of national database out there now with all of this going on. Our point with that is, if DHS&B, and all the DHS&Bs are filing into this national database, if DHS&B was not to dismiss those cases for 7 years, then we could stay in the national database. It might increase collections too. So I'm not sure if they even want to look at that 7-year rule, or someone should approach them about that, because she said if I could pay a 1985 from Tennessee, then why is it they don't have to pay us? But if we dismiss it, it comes out of that national database.
And I think that goes to the point that we're looking at with the revision of 795.
That we think is still due and owing.
The National Act too, I don't think all states recognize it. You don't have to buy into it, because I know that we have an issue come up recently where the person is suspended here on one of our cases, and they, I don't know, Kansas Kentucky case say something, and they refuse to acknowledge it. The person was like, oh, I'm driving.
So there's another place that we might be able to.
So I mean, I know there's international something, but it's like one of those uniform acts. The state's going to adopt it or not. And so I don't know what the numbers are either. Pros and cons. But that's a good